KFM 95.9, good music, good friends. You're listening to The Home Straight. Just 10 minutes after 8, and we have a fabulous pair of guests in studio tonight. Ran into them a few weeks ago at the Discovery Sports Industry Awards, where they were out there together, and kind of got me thinking, because we've often talked to Matthew about all matters football over the years, from his days with Bafana Bafana, Mamelodi Sundowns, Ajax, Cape Town, and so on and so forth. But we've never spoke to them together about what it's been like as a couple in football, because we've often had these discussions here at the home of the Afropolitan, where home and family is really important to us. And lots of footballers have said, if only I had stayed with the girl that I fell in love with when I was a young man, and not
before I made all the money.
Yeah, and not gotten lost in this whole life. Lavas Muhlala a few weeks ago said exactly the same thing. Then maybe things would be different for me now. So we thought, why not talk to one of those South Africa's football success stories? And I'm sure it hasn't been easy all the way for those of us who are married, and I think everyone in this room is. Hey, it's not always easy. Yeah. So, but we want to talk a little bit about that and the challenges that relate to family life, that balance when it comes to football. Matthew and Sonia, thank you so much for joining us.
No, it's a pleasure, and thank you for having us. Both on. At the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah, so maybe let's start with, for those who don't know, because you see people on TV and you watch them playing football or whatever, and you think you know them, but where did you guys meet? Where did this romance blossom all those years ago?
I think I don't know if you remember a guy called Alan Amogu, who used to be a striker at Sundowns. I was very close with him when I was at Downs in my first stint, and he took me home one evening, and Sonia and a friend of hers was babysitting his daughter.
Oh my gosh!
And that was it. She met me at the door with these very sexy pajamas on. So I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but from then on it was
It sounds it sounds like a very steamy story where you fell for the nanny. It sounds very, very steamy.
No.
But Sonia, for you, first time meeting Matthew, he walks through the door. Was it like an instant, hey girl, do you want to go out, or did you work towards that?
Okay, first of all, point of correction. I was not a nanny. I was never a nanny.
So there were no pajamas.
A nanny. And it's taken two kids to know that I'll never be a nanny. I was a full-time model, a professional model.
Yeah.
And Alan happened not to have anybody to look after his daughter when they were playing in Cameroon for a tournament, when they were playing for Sundowns. So being the kind-hearted person that I am, and a loving person that I am,
you volunteer to take care of other people's children.
To look after his daughter for the weekend. So yeah, let's get that clear. Okay.
Not the nanny. Okay, so clearly you were not the nanny. You were the babysitter for the weekend.
Yes.
In these apparently very sexy pajamas, according to Matthew.
There was nothing sexy about those pajamas. You know, every girl has those pajamas. Well, at least I know for me, my favorite pajamas had teddy bears all around them. They were long sleeve pants, and they were long sleeve a shirt. So there was nothing sexy about them except the fact that couple of buttons were missing. So maybe, according to him,
he could have been encouraged.
Yeah, but, maybe a bit of skin was shown, but he got ideas, and my mind was not even there.
Did he ask you out right there and then?
No, interestingly enough, he was very shy. Unlike many football players, they've got a reputation for being loud and aloof and in your face and loving
and
attention.
And very super confident.
Yes, when they walk into a room, they even have that walk. That says, I know the chicks dig me type of thing.
Yeah.
But with him, what made me, fall for him at the time, or what made me curious about him was that how quiet he was, and I was very curious, and I think that's what attracted me to him at that point.
And that's an interesting question, because did you think, oh, let me hold on, he's a footballer, maybe not, they've got a reputation, Did you think that, or because he was different, he was not your regular footballer? Is that maybe what made you say maybe?
You know, love can make you do strange things. Things that you can't even explain sometimes. I mean, I remember I had made a vow to myself that I'll never date a model, because I had been surrounded by them, backstage during fashion shows, and they were like so arrogant. There we go again with that whole attitude,
Yeah.
And footballers were also, sportsmen
the same
in
caliber.
general.
Yeah.
I had put them in the same box that I'll never date a model and I'll never date a sportsman. But with Matthew, it was different. And 16 years later, we're still together.
So who got whose numbers? So, because I'm still at the house with a few buttons missing off these pajamas. Who got whose numbers and who called who?
No, I definitely made the first move.
Yeah.
Obviously, Alan was a close friend of mine, and it wasn't too difficult to get them off him. And luckily, Sonia agreed to meet up with me, I think, after a couple of weeks of going out as a group.
Yeah.
We never looked back from then.
Uh-huh. And obviously you started dating. Sonia, at the time, were you living at home? And where was home at the time? Because I was reading your story, and that you're obviously, like most of us in Johannesburg, are from Soweto, right? So were you living at home at the time?
No, I left home when I was 18.
Yeah.
I was one of those people, I couldn't wait to get out of the house.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to my mom, I know she's listening.
Yeah.
Gaurada mama, you know that. But I had always been very ambitious, wanted my own place. I mean, I think it's every teenager's dream to leave the house.
Until you have it and the bills start piling up.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So when we met, I had this very comfortable cottage that I was renting out in Parkhurst, I had it good. I mean, modeling was going very, very well for me. So I maintained my own independence at the time.
So the reason why I'm asking that is because I was wondering what it was like if he ever came to Cheka in Soweto at home. Was there ever those situations where you are at home and he's driving up to come see you?
No, I mean, we would go and visit my mum together.
Yes.
Because obviously I had my own place, and mum lives Gopimville. So we would go together, and he was welcomed with, a warm heart and open arms. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was mostly to do with the fact that she was a Sundown supporter, so that definitely helped at the time.
Yes.
That made it easier.
Actually, an interesting fact was that Sonia and her mum at some stage lived in Snawani.
Yeah.
And that's where Mike Ntumbela used to live as well. And he was very well known in the area, and he used to help out a lot within the community. So from that fact, a lot of the community members started to follow Sundowns in that particular area.
Yeah.
Sure.
And also it also made things easier for you, as you say, because you're a Sundowns guy. Now let's fast forward a little bit. You guys meet whilst you're playing in Sundowns in your first stint, and then the offer to go to Russia comes along. Were you guys married at that time? Is it a decision you made together? Because a lot of guys, when they get those overseas offers, they might have a serious girlfriend. Very few are married if you're 24 or 25. And some leave the girl here at home and it's never the same. They go there and meet someone else and life moves on. Is that a decision that you guys made together?
One thing I've always loved about Matthew is that he always consults with me, before making any decision, which at the time made me realize that he took me seriously, or that I held a special place in his heart. And it gave me the impression that, there was a future. I remember when the contract was proposed to him, we sat down and I said to him, you know what, I've been postponing studying for my degree for the longest time ever. So perhaps you can go to Russia and I can stay behind and finish the degree that I have been putting off for so many years. And that's what we did.
And the long distance, was it difficult for you to be in a long distance? Russia it's far, obviously, and you can't come every weekend. It's not like somebody that's in Durban that'd be like, okay, no, it's fine. I'm playing in Durban, but every weekend I'll be in Joburg. The challenges of being with somebody that far apart.
Yeah, it was extremely difficult. And I think this is where relationships are tested, long distance relationships, the fact that I was in Russia for 3 or 4 months at a time without seeing Sonia. But at the end of the day, we realized that Sonia wanted her degree badly. Myself, beggars can't be choosers. I didn't have any offers to go and play in more established leagues, so it was a little bit of mercenary of me to go just for the money. I didn't know anything about Russia when I went there, but it was a risk that paid off. And ultimately, once Sonia had finished her degree, she came and joined me, and it worked out well.
Was it your first real challenge in a relationship as a couple? Because you always go through like the first real challenges, not the stupid fights, but the first actual real challenges. Was this the first real challenge?
Definitely, by far, because I mean, even in between the semesters, when I would go and visit him June and towards the end of November after I finished writing my exams, obviously we made the best of the time that we spent together. But when you don't see your partner for like 3, 4, 5 months, there can be insecurities as well. And but for many people, long distance relationships don't work. I mean, it wasn't not easy for us, but we always reminded ourselves that we made the decision together for me to stay behind, because I knew that was going to be the best decision for not only for my life but for my career, because I had always wanted to have something more than being known as a model. For me, that there was a lot more that I wanted to achieve in life, and I certainly didn't just want to be known as Sonya Booth, Matthew Booth's wife. I wanted to prove that there was more to me than that.
Your own person.
Exactly. And I wanted to prove to Matthew that, just being in his shadow was not going to be good enough for me. And just to be like a wag or a girlfriend at the time, I wanted to prove to him that, listen, I'm a very ambitious girl, and this is what you're going to have to put up with.
Kai, if you're just joining us, it's just gone 26 minutes past 8. This is Kai FM 95.9. Good music, good friends. And of course, you are listening to The Home Straight. My name is Sotumea. And as usual, I'm with Musiburi Whitehead. And this evening in the studio, we're also joined by the Booths. That is Matthew and Sonya Booth. And they're telling their story about being a couple in the spotlight. Because, of course, he's a soccer player and former football player. And, of course, Sonia is a model, which puts them directly under the spotlight.
Smack bang.
Exactly. And we're also talking about the challenges of being in a relationship. It's challenging enough being in a normal relationship. I think it's probably even more challenging when you're both famous people, when you are I think you're a Miss South Africa contestant. Sonia, Matthew is a football player. And as you know, with football players, we were just talking now about football players and how they always believe that, women want them. And that's because women do want them. It's not like they're just acting up. There are even ladies that will go out there to the training camps and stuff and, scout guys and that kind of thing. So for you guys, already you had the challenge of being in a relationship where you were long distance. You finally get back together and there's probably people around that are always trying to get a foot in there. What was it like dealing with it? Or did you ever have to deal with that kind of situation where people were throwing themselves at either one of you? You're a model. He's a football player.
He was playing for Sundowns.
He is playing for Sundowns. You are a model. I'm sure there would be people throwing themselves at you from all corners. What was it like dealing with that? Or did you ever have to deal with that situation?
I think, you hit the nail on the head. It was, and it hasn't stopped, it's work in progress, and it was always, a trust issue, and as a footballer, an ex-model, now a business woman in her own right, it's that sort of relationship is that sort of pressure is exacerbated or exaggerated even further. And I think the statistics for football players in Europe and in South Africa is that 5 years after retirement, 75% of players are broke, divorced, or both. So sure. It's for us, we dealt with the media pressure, especially during the World Cup. But for me, psychologically, the most difficult process has been when I retired and having to deal with stepping out of that spotlight and now changing over to and giving Sonia her platform for doing what she wants to do. And if you're not psychologically strong enough for that particular scenario, then you will end up in trouble.
It could break you. Yeah, Sonia, for you as well, dealing with all sorts of things coming your way and, still being able to say, you know what, we actually trust each other to remain in this relationship and to make this work.
For me, the most challenging thing was whenever Matthew was confronted by, women, and it would put me in an uncomfortable position, especially if someone doesn't even acknowledge my presence. Like we would be at a restaurant.
And they go straight to him. Hey.
How are you? Can I take a selfie with you?
You are not even there.
We do our dinner dates once a week. I mean, up till this day, it's a ritual. It's a family thing. It's something that we decided a long time ago, just to stay in touch and keep in touch, and to keep those flames.
And it's how you make
Leave
marriage
the kids
work.
with the nanny.
Exactly.
Date night.
Yeah. So for me, luckily Matthew understood, because I sat down with him one day and I said, you know what, they can take all the pictures that they want. They can get as many autographs as they want. But all I ask of you is that before they even ask any of that of you, is that they at least say hello to me, just so that they acknowledge my presence, because it's very disrespectful. I mean, I'm a typical township girl, and we all know that, as Moto Pelanlebatu is that the minute you walk into a room, you acknowledge the people that are there.
Yes.
Just to show also that you are cultured and that you're from a family that's got it together, and that's got high belief systems. And after that, Matthew would go out of his way to remind people, or to say,
this is my
wife, Sonia. And if they're smart enough, they'll obviously realize that they made an error in not even greeting me. But I'm very happy to step aside and let them do their thing, as long as they're not disrespectful and as long as they don't get too close to
Does it happen vice versa? Where guys are like, hey Sonia, let's take a picture.
It's never happened.
They're scared of
Point
her.
of order.
He's 2 meters taller. You would have to be a very brave man to come up
and
to
that
me.
just looks dangerous.
Yeah,
Spend
exactly.
some time in Russia with the skinheads.
and he's from the Caps. He's from
Fishhook. The Fishhook is hardly the Caps flats.
No, I didn't want to mention where he's from. I just wanted for people to think that he's from dangerous, gangsterism type of areas. But yeah, you've messed it up for me anyway.
But to be honest,
now people are going to walk up to you.
Yeah.
Most generally, the South African public are very polite. It's just been the odd couple, who you sometimes have to put in place. And plus, what I love about the South African society and culture is that we're not too celebrity obsessed, And so, not that I'm putting myself in that bracket, because I don't think we have a culture of celebs. But certainly, it hasn't been a big issue. It might seem a small issue, but it was something that we needed to communicate, and it was obviously very important to both of us.
And I'm sure for you guys, it's made even more difficult by the challenges of being in an interracial relationship. I have a friend he's white and he's married to a black woman, and he speaks about the challenges of just going to restaurants. And they've been married for a number of years now, not 16 years, but they've been married for 5-6 years. The challenges of going to a restaurant, the challenges of people staring at you, and obviously you guys are famous and your faces are well known, so that makes that even more difficult. And the challenges of maybe in Matthew's case, other white people saying, oh. And in your case, Sonia, other ladies going, have you faced those challenges, given that this is South Africa?
Not at all. I think we live in Johannesburg. We've lived in Cape Town for a large part of our lives, and both cities are very cosmopolitan. We lived in Russia for 6 years, and there we never had one single ugly incident with regards to our race. And people stereotype Russians as being
yes,
racist.
I wouldn't think that. Yeah.
But there were obviously dynamics involved there where I was playing for the local team. People knew that I was foreign, etc. So they might have looked past it. And it was more of a curiosity for them than anything else. But certainly here in South Africa, obviously if we lived in perhaps a rural area or a farming community, then we would perhaps have issues, just like in any other country around the world. But certainly here in Johannesburg or Durban or Cape Town, we would never have, I can't think of any particular incident, to be honest.
It's KFM 95.9. Good music, good friends. You're listening to the Home Straight. 25 to 9. It means that it's 25 more minutes before the late night show gets underway. And we're talking to Matthew and Sonia Booth. You're giving us your calls on 086 00 959. And I see some of those calls are building up. We will take them in just a moment. I like what you're saying about the challenges that you have and haven't faced, and how South African society is very welcoming for your kids as well, because now you've retired, Matthew, you're no longer playing football, and it's time for Sonia to shine and for you to support her. One thing that you guys have done together is you have started an academy of sorts. Tell us a little bit about that before we take Calvin and TK who are calling us.
In 2009, we founded the Booth Education and Sports Trust with the concept of wanting to, first of all, from the education side, to make reading fun. Because when you look at the stats, with literacy in South Africa, the stats are absolutely shocking, and we're both very passionate about education. So the idea of book clubs came along, mentorship programs, bursaries being awarded to deserving students, and then from the sports side, being football clinics, of which Matthew is in charge of, and he brings together former football players who also assist him. And it's a non-profit public benefit organization. And I'm happy to say that 10% of the proceeds from my book will be going to the trust.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That is awesome. That's absolutely great.
Yeah.
Sonia, as a wife of a football player, is there like a WAG culture in South Africa, in the sense that, or is it something that's only developing now, where you and the other ladies will go out and hang out? Is there a WAG culture, or is it something that we see in the EPL and we see on TV and we assume it exists, but it actually doesn't?
No, it does not exist. I mean, when you look at a program like Footballers' Wives, for example, it's nothing close to that. I mean, I know there's a program on TV.
On TV, yes.
That's talking about the partners of sportsmen, soccer players in particular. But no, I was never a part of that. If there is a world out there like that, but I was not a part of it. I knew a couple of ladies who were involved with football players, and we did go out every now and again. But it was not to a point where, we are hanging around or friends and go to the spas and spend the days shopping. No, that lifestyle, I don't know that lifestyle.
It's a farce.
It is. And it's a delusion that there is that much money lying around for women just to wake up in the morning and
I keep telling people all the time, they're like, no, these guys, but I'm like, guys, you got to temper it, because some of the numbers that we read in the newspapers are not true.
And also, a soccer player's career is very short, so that's money that's got to be stretched out to the rest of your life.
Plus the EPL gives us a bad reputation, because those guys really earn a lot of cash. But here it's not the case, and society and family members and friends, etc., expect football players to drive the latest car, to spend money when they go out. So we have to deal with that sort of pressure as well, and we have to be very strong personality-wise to resist those kinds of pressures.
It's 10 to 8. This is KFM, Kaya 95.9, Good Music, Good Friends. We've almost come to the end of our show. And of course, if you are just joining us, we're having a conversation with Matthew and Sonya Booth, and we're talking about their life as what people termed as a power couple, especially in sport, in the sense that, we know him for a football player, we know her as a model as well, and as well in Miss South Africa as well, and many other things as well. I think fashion as well is what people mostly recognize you for, Sonya, and I think there was a time when you had a shoe brand, so we know you for that kind of stuff as well. We've got a couple of tweets and SMSs coming through, people showing a lot of love for you guys. Somebody here saying Amanda Mbali Kings saying, I love how they still sound so good together. They don't sound like 16 years together. So you guys sound like you're still very fresh.
Young and fresh.
Must have been the coffee that I had before.
And Ed Tabang as well saying, nice conversation with the Booth family. He just wants to get a prediction from you, Mr. Booth, as to who will win the PSL title. So before we get into that prediction, you have a moment to think about it. Sonia, I was asking you guys what it's like raising kids in a multiracial, multicultural family, household. Was it a decision that you guys made together, how we're going to raise them? Is the one culture more dominant than the other, or do you try to split it 50-50?
we fuse both cultures together. I mean, Matthew's upbringing is as equally important as the way I was brought up, and I mean, it's a work in progress. You know, I need to reiterate that it's never easy, especially when kids are involved. But we do our best. I mean, with the help of both our parents. Yeah.
And the kids, are they multilingual, or you know, which languages do they speak?
You know, the plan was for me to speak Zulu with Noah, and then teach Nathan Tswana. I mean, you're not gonna gossip around them. They'll be able to pick up Noah Zulu and then Nathan Tswana. So it is a work in progress. But
And
they are learning.
Must speak Russian to them.
Matthew,
because he is fluent after all those
Matthew's
years.
Zulu is impressive.
Really?
All football players. Funny story, Sherwin Naika, goalkeeper for Jomo Cosmos. He's from Durban in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Never spoke a word of Zulu until he started playing professional football up here in Joburg at Super Sports United's Academy, and that's where he learned how to speak Zulu. So if you play football, you
Zulu
pick up.
is like
pick
it's
up
the
Zulu.
one. Yeah.
Well, she's giving me too much credit. I'm like my boys, if you speak slowly to me like a 5-year-old, then I can understand it.
So you're not that fluent.
No.
Well, also, I like that about the kids because, I mean, as you grow older, you start thinking about my life and what kind of example I'm setting for my children and what kind of legacy I'll leave for them. Was that part of the thinking that went into writing the book? I see it's called Reinvent Yourself and Stay Relevant. Was it a personal journey? Why did you decide to write the book?
Remember, Matthew has created his legacy, and his legacy is his and his alone. Yes, he's created it for the family, and in particular for our boys as well. I needed for our boys to also look back and say, Daddy did this, Daddy achieved this, but Mummy achieved this and that. And like I said, there's more to me than
wife.
The title of being the wife or the wag or whatever you want to call me. So that was my part of trying to create a legacy.
And what is the book about? Well, the title is pretty self-explanatory, but who is the target audience? What is it supposed to help the person, the reader, with?
Anyone that's interested in succeeding, anyone that wants to be an expert in their respective industry or respective field. Remember that irrespective of what industry you're in, you have to brand yourself to be taken seriously. How you package yourself, that's going to help you to stand out in a crowd, stand out from the rest of the pack. If you want to distinguish yourself, you have to take personal branding seriously. And How to Reinvent Yourself and Stay Relevant is the book that will take you on that path with examples of people that have not only branded themselves, but that have gone to elevate those brands into super brands.
So almost like a self-help. Like a self-help branding kind of book.
Yes,
okay.
Precisely.
And are there examples in the book of South Africans or global citizens or?
I've covered all aspects. I mean, from entertainment. I've mentioned some businesswomen, politicians, philanthropists as well. It's not only in South Africa, but if you are successful and you take a brand seriously, you are in my book.
Can you give us one or two? Sorry, Sonia, just so we have something to look forward to. Like a little bit of a.
Okay, a woman like Kanye Lomo is in the
nice
book.
one.
Basetsana Khumalo is in the book. DJ Spoo is spoken about in the book. Dr. Dre, for example, is in the book. Mo Ibrahim, who's a philanthropist, and Alan Gray as well. The late Princess Diana, Mama Grasa Machel is in the book. So you can see I've covered every industry from entertainment to business and etc. Everything along those lines is being spoken about in the book, just to highlight the fact that irrespective of what industry you're in, you have to brand yourself.
Yeah, it doesn't pertain to high-profile personalities. I mean, this could be, in any industry that you find yourself in. I found it very interesting, not only because I had just recently retired, but the fact that, you can't rely on getting into that comfort zone. That really hit home, and leaving a legacy as well, no matter what you do, leave your own legacy. That was a very important message that I got from Sonia's book.
And sometimes you have to rebrand yourself as an individual. You might have been used to living your life in a certain way, and you get to a point where professional sports, a perfect example, you can't play anymore. So who am I now? And people sometimes, professional sports men and women, suffer with an almost identity crisis once that period ends and you begin a new life.
Another important part where a lot of people are getting themselves into trouble these days is through social media. And Sonia gives some very good advice on how to handle that situation.
Yeah. And to what? Keep it to a minimum?
Well, don't tweet unless you have something profound to say. I mean, if it's like at 2:00 in the morning and you're at a nightclub with your friends and you've had one too many, put your phone away, because people forget that you might delete it in the morning when you've sobered up, but it stays in the class forever.
Also, I find that a lot of people are reacting in a knee-jerk manner. Like they'll be walking down the street and they'll get angry at something and they'll respond. And then half an hour later, when they've cooled down, and I think that's a lot of people are getting themselves into trouble in that particular manner.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, and what a lovely conversation. We've still got lots more tweets and lots more calls. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. That was fun.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.